Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. Within the Chung country. Go. Go. Sunan led his 5,000-strong army to stop their westward march and instead turned south, charging madly towards the king's palace. When they were still dozens of miles away from the palace, everyone had fled. All the eunuchs and guards in the palace had run away. If he didn't run, was he going to wait for death? Not only did the people in the palace run away, but even the tribes near the palace had run away. The distance of 200 miles was covered in less than a day. Sunan's 5,000-strong army had easily occupied the entire Chang imperial palace. While they were still on their horses, Sunan ordered, "Send out 100 scouts to the east, west, south, and north. Make sure that you know everything within 100 miles. Yes. 100 scouts rushed out. Half of the army, dismount and cut the gold. Be quick. Sunan then ordered. No one is to hide anything. Hand over all the gold you've cut off and distribute it. The other half of the army, set up your defenses and get ready to fight at any time. The moment Sunan's order was given, over 4,000 people responded excitedly. Yes. Then, more than 2,000 warriors drew their sharp knives and charged at the king's palace. Their stance was like a butcher's knife slashing at cattle and sheep. The other 2,000 warriors began to form a simple line of defense, setting up a defense on the spot. It could cut gold. This was too exciting. The harvest was always delightful. Even if it was just harvesting grains and fruits, it would bring incomparable joy. Not to mention gold. These 2,000 people each took a corner and began to cut the gold with knives. This was because gold was far softer than iron. Half an hour passed. An hour had passed. 2 hours passed. More and more gold was harvested. However, the 2,000 warriors who were cutting the gold realized that the job was far less enjoyable than they had imagined. This was because the gold was painted on. The entire roof, ground, and even some walls were made of gold. After all the areas painted with gold were spread out, the area was hundreds of thousands of square meters. In other words, each person had to cut out a few hundred square meters of area. Moreover, the golden ones were huge in quantity, weighing more than 100,000 jin. However, when it was spread out to hundreds of thousands of square meters, it was really just a thin layer. Although gold was soft, it was only relatively speaking. Moreover, the walls and stones were very hard. It was not easy to cut a small piece of it, and the knife would become blunt very quickly. After 3 hours of cutting, these 2,000 people couldn't take it anymore. It was too uncomfortable to squat there and it was too glaring. It was still summer, and the sun was scorching hot, causing him to sweat profusely. Hence, Sunan gave the order for the two armies to switch. The people who cut the gold would set up the defense, and the people who set up the defense would cut the gold. Instantly, everyone was overjoyed. Just like that, the gold was cut from day to night. Countless people were complaining about the Chong king. Why did you have to melt the stolen gold and paint it on the palace? Couldn't you have made it into pieces of gold bricks and placed them in the cellar for us to move? That would be so refreshing. Cutting gold was really hard work. How long would it take to cut it? When night fell, Sunan appeared especially nervous. He even jumped to the top of the palace and looked around, listening to see if there were any enemy troops. Still no. Then, Sunan strolled around the palace. More and more gold was being cut. It was almost piled up into a small mountain. A large furnace had already been set up at the side. Gold foil had been cut, and it had all been melted into gold bricks that weighed 10 jin each. Sunan picked up a gold brick. Under the light of the fire, it appeared to be golden and dazzling, which was especially likable. My lord, the amount of gold is more than we expected. After conversion, it should be more than 2 million gold coins. With this gold, my lord will be able to quickly gain a firm foothold in the western regions and obtain the position of provincial governor. In a few years, my Su clan will be able to prosper again. When the Yu country is in chaos, we will kill our way back and take back the country that belongs to us. Furthermore, I will kill Shen Lang and the Jin family. Exterminate. Long live the Lord. Long live the Su clan. To a certain extent, gold was indeed omnipotent. They hadn't even reached the western regions yet, but their morale was already high when they saw the countless gold. It was a dark night. The gold was still being cut. Su Nan patrolled the area and was concerned about every soldier. Be careful. Don't fall down. Don't get too close to the torch, be careful not to burn your hair. Su Nan was very good at this kind of little trick to win people's hearts. She ensured that everyone felt that the Lord was concerned about them. Many people's first reaction after cutting gold was to bite it. This was inevitable, because gold was soft. This gold is not clean after being exposed to the wind and the sun outside. Don't eat the dirty stuff, Su Nan said gently. However, it didn't stop these details. Because there was no way to stop it. Many people picked up the xiaobing and stuffed it into their mouths after touching the gold. Wu Lai and the others had brushed the dirtiest water from the corpse pit on the gold. They did not know how many bacteria were in it. They had also dissolved dozens of kilograms of white arsenic in more than 100 buckets of water, although it was in a very small amount. However, as long as one came into contact with gold, it was inevitable that they would more or less eat it. The workload of cutting gold was too great. Su Nan's army stayed in the Chong royal palace for a few days. Even so, the gold in the king's palace had not been completely harvested. Even so, the amount of gold that was cut off was 150,000 pounds, which was more than 2 million gold coins. I'm rich. It was enough for the Su family to quickly rise again in the west and east. Furthermore, there were still no enemy troops within 100 miles. The Su clan's army gradually calmed down. However, there was a small problem. This was because some of the Su clan soldiers were gradually having diarrhea. In fact, it had started since midnight on the first day. However, they didn't pay much attention to it at first. After all, they were in the wilderness, and it was a hot summer day. It was normal for people to have diarrhea. However, more and more soldiers were erupting. And her diarrhea was getting worse. This was not even malaria, as it had a longer incubation period. This was only the outbreak of other bacteria and viruses. Finally, one day, the Su clan's army welcomed an outbreak of the disease. Many Su clan's warriors fell sick. It was a hot summer day, but they were shivering from the cold. However, his body temperature was frighteningly high. The shape of her stomach was getting worse. Dozens, hundreds of people. In the end, most of the soldiers started to vomit and have diarrhea. In the end, even blood was pulled out. At the sight of this scene, Su Nan's entire body turned cold. Not good. This gold was not clean. The surface must have been smeared with something. Whose plan was this? It must be Shen Lang, it must be Shen Lang. This was not the most terrifying thing. Since Shen Lang had tampered with the gold in the Chongqing Palace, it meant that he had already predicted that the Su clan's army would come to the Chongqing Palace. This meant that the army of the Chong Kingdom was not far away. Not good, not good. Shen Lang's army is about to arrive. Su Nan muttered to herself. How many people would Shen Lang have? 10,000 cavalrymen? No, it wasn't just that. Arunana had become the new king of the Chong Kingdom. Wherever she went, the tribal cavalrymen would follow. There might be more than 20,000 cavalrymen from the Chong Kingdom charging over. Su Nan looked at the soldiers who were rolling on the ground and having diarrhea. These people were weak from all the pulling and had no strength to fight. They would probably be destroyed in a few charges. Su Nan was so regretful that she almost vomited blood. Blinded by greed, blinded by greed. Why? I knew that I should head west and not be distracted by anything, even if it's 2 million gold coins. Why am I still so greedy? Su Nan let out a series of howls from the bottom of his throat. He hit his head hard. Shen Lang was truly vicious, truly vicious. Although he had been carried away for a day or two, he quickly came to his senses and set up a trap in the king's palace. I clearly know that this child is vicious, I clearly know that he has no spare plans, so why did I still make a mistake? Su Yong trembled and said, "My lord, even if Shen Lang's army caught up, their speed wouldn't be fast. That's because we didn't find a large army a few hundred miles behind us. If there were, those scouts would have reported it long ago. It'll take them at least a few days to catch up, and we can still escape." "No," Su Zhan said. "Stop cutting the gold right now. Everyone, get on your horses and run. Go, go, go." Su Nan gave the order. Everyone mounted their horses, regardless of whether they were sick or not. They did not even bother to cut the remaining gold. They took the gold that they had already obtained and ran towards the west. As he ran, the stench filled the air. More and more people were having diarrhea on their horses. It had been 2 days since Su Nan had escaped from the king's palace. Even though they were on a vast grassland, they had only covered less than 200 li in these 2 days. The sickness in the army is too serious. Within Su Nan's army, more and more people fell sick. In the end, half of them fell sick. And then, the scouts had brought back terrifying news. They had discovered a large group of Chong Kingdom's cavalrymen and were charging over from the south. Not from the back, but from the south. Su Nan trembled all over. Indeed, Shen Lang had made a detour to the south and chased after them. Now that his army had all fallen ill, how could they fight? Su Zhan desperately slapped his own face, knelt on the ground, and kowtowed with all his might. "My lord, it's all my fault, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have been greedy. If I didn't mention the gold, there wouldn't be such a disaster today." Su Yong even kowtowed until his head bled, because he was the one who first mentioned that the king's palace had gold. Su Nan had a splitting headache. However, he once again fell into absolute calmness. Once again, the Su clan was faced with yet another calamity. What should he do? What to do? "Su Nan, if we can't get past this, the Su clan will be annihilated. Greed hurts me. Blinded by greed. What should I do? The Su clan couldn't be annihilated like this. There must be a way, there must be a way." Su Zhan said, "Brother, take a few hundred people and escape to the western region as fast as you can. I'll stay behind to cover the retreat. I caused this trouble. I'll make up for it with my death." Su Yong said, "My lord, I will also stay behind to cover the retreat. You take the young master and leave, quickly leave." Su Nan shook his head and said, "No, no. Shen Lang should have an ambush in the west. He should have guessed that I'm going to the western region. We've been delayed for a few days at the Cheng Palace. He must have sent his elite cavalry to the front and is waiting for us to walk into his trap." "Su Yong, are you willing to die for me?" Su Nan asked calmly. Su Yong kowtowed, "This old servant is willing, this old servant is willing." Su Mo said, "Wear my robe and hold my flag. Continue to head west. Continue forward. Attract Shen Lang's main force. The Chang kingdom would have to pass through the mountains and valleys to reach the western region. This was the only direct route. Shen Lang would definitely set up an ambush there. You should be the bait. And I'll take a few hundred people and quietly head north." "To the north, to Chu?" Su Yong asked. "No, I'm just passing through Chu to the western region," said Su Mo. Su Yong, "Yes, it's my lord." "Su Yong, it's been hard on you." Su Nan patted his shoulder. "It is this old servant's fortune to die for my lord." Su Yong cried. 15 minutes later, Su Yong disguised himself as Su Nan and led thousands of Su clan's troops to the west, attracting the pursuit of the Chong kingdom's cavalry. Su Nan disguised himself as an ordinary warrior and led a few hundred of his trusted subordinates, along with a portion of the gold, to run north under the cover of the night. Su Nan was ruthless enough to cut off an arm to survive again. Half a day later, a few hundred Su clan direct descendants continuously and madly sprinted towards the north. It didn't slow down at all, and after a few hours, it had run more than 100 miles. He should have escaped. Su Yong led a few thousand people to the west, which seemed like the main force. She should have managed to deceive Shen Lang this time. Although they would have to travel a few thousand li more to enter the western region by way of Chu State, they would still need to go north. Even though they had lost thousands of people. However, with a few hundred people and a large amount of gold, they should still be able to rise again. My Su clan will definitely not be exterminated. Absolutely not. I, Su Nan, have 9 lives. Shen Lang wants to kill me? Impossible, impossible. As long as I survive, my Su clan will be able to rise again. One day, I'll still be able to kill my way back to the state of Yu and establish a dynasty that belongs to the Su clan. One day, I will still be able to kill the entire Jin family and tear you into pieces. Dismembered into 10,000 pieces. However, at this moment, a faint sound came from the air. Uncle Su Nan, why are you in such a hurry? Are we going north to Chu State and take a detour to the western region? In that instant, Su Nan, who was dressed as an ordinary warrior, jolted. His soul almost flew out of his body. He looked at all of this in disbelief. And then, from the darkness, a few thousand warriors appeared and began to quickly surround him. Su Nan's group of a few hundred people had fled too quickly. There was no time to send out scouts to scout ahead. Uncle Su Nan, I've been waiting for you here for a long time. I've already anticipated that you'd be like a cicada shedding its shell again. You'd definitely have someone impersonate you and lead the Su clan's main army to the west as a cover-up, and you'd also secretly lead a small number of people to the north. You're really cunning. A moment later, a few thousand warriors had surrounded Su Nan's few hundred men. Almost all of the Su clan's direct descendants were here. Uncle Su Nan, the Su clan will be completely annihilated today. Shen Lang said calmly. Kill. Shen Lang gave the order. Immediately, thousands of warriors fired their crossbows. Wash. Immediately, fresh blood spurted out and dyed the entire night sky red. Su Nan lifted the cloak. This was the first time Shen Lang saw his true appearance. He had always pretended to be old when he saw him before. But now, he didn't look very young. His face was already showing signs of old age, and wrinkles had appeared at the corners of his eyes. Not only that, his hair was not completely black, but a patch of white. The Sword King Li Chenxiu looked at him and was slightly stunned. In just a short 1 to 2 months, Su Nan had changed completely. She had aged more than 10 years. The last time he tried to assassinate Su Nan at the resting point on the west side of Lang County, the other party was so young, so heroic, and so imposing. And today, how dejected was he? Shen Lang's thousands of warriors shot their arrows at the same time.